Med spas are kind of a punchline right now for a lot of people. And that's not where we want to be. We don't want to be the butt of jokes because that's not how we are. And we know that's not accurate. So we want to be professional, clinical, all the things that we know we are. We need to do PR. We need to build our image. We need to change that narrative. And we need to be ready with a lot of resources to fight these things when they do come up.
Alex has built a thriving legal career focusing on helping med spas and aesthetic businesses stay compliant and successful. These days, he's also managing partner of Bertadotto's Chicago office and travels the world speaking about industry regulations and best practices. On top of all of that, he's a husband, a pet parent to 8 animals, 5 dogs, and 3 cats. We're so thrilled and excited to catch up on all things med spa with Alex Thiersch.
Okay, so you run a beauty business, which means you wear like 7 hats, right? Boulevard's all-in-one client experience platform lightens the load. Think seamless scheduling, automated marketing, and built-in ways to make more revenue. Less stress, more success. For a limited time, we're offering podcast listeners 10% off plus free guided setup. Get started at joinblvd.com/podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us, Alex. We're so excited to talk with you today and dive into all things med spa. I feel like I've heard kind of your intro story to the industry from being at boot camps and the medical spa show. But for our listeners, tell us a little bit about how you got into the industry.
It's a very long and complicated story, but I call myself a recovering lawyer because I am still a lawyer. I still have my license, but I don't really practice anymore. I kind of fell into the industry almost by accident. I knew I didn't want to work for anybody, so I don't have the capacity to actually follow orders. So opened my own firm, and one of the clients we had come in this was circa 2008 or 2009, was an RN. And back then, the industry was completely different. But she was killing it, making millions, but was totally illegal and was being investigated. I learned through her kind of what this industry was about, and then admittedly and selfishly started to market to med spas. Hey, I can provide resources. I can provide legal information. And so that's how the association started. It was a marketing arm, but very quickly I realized that this was, and number one, it was an incredible industry with incredible people who were very passionate about it. It's a really cool industry in that you make people feel very, very confident and empowered in themselves, which I thought was awesome. A lot of entrepreneurs, small businesses, which was cool, and they needed help. And so it really became kind of a thing where after a while I realized, all right, this could be something. And that's how AmSpa was born. One thing led to another. We started doing events, boot camps, MSS, had some vendors come on, and I looked down and all of a sudden we've got 500 members, and I'm like, man, I could actually do this. And so here we are. Next thing you know, 12 years later.
At the win, actually. We're at the, win, the whole gamut.
There, even last year when we were at Medical Spa Show, I was walking around the exhibit hall this year, which was by far our biggest one. And I was looking around going, this does not look like anything that we've done. It doesn't look like our event. Like, who is this? Because it was so crazy to see how many people were there, and the energy was always so fun and cool. I always thought I'd be like, you can't handle the truth, like cross-examining, crazy courtroom. I was going to be a trial lawyer. I did for a while. I never thought I would be talking about lip fillers and Botox and vaginal rejuvenation, which I did for a while back in the day when that was big. Like, I never thought that would be what my career would be. So it's interesting though. I love it though. It's been a really cool ride. And for those people who are in the med spa or medical aesthetics industry, I mean, it is one of the coolest, most fun, most rewarding industries around, which is why lately there's been some turbulence, I feel like. And that's why I've been a little nervous about things, because we've definitely hit a few rough patches, which I know we'll talk about. I would love talking about the good stuff. The bad stuff is bullshit. There's your swear word, Sky.
We got plenty of time for all. So you told us a little bit about what inspired you to start. Can you tell us a little bit how the mission has changed over the years? You've been doing this for a while.
It started as fully just compliance based. So it was, here's the laws, here's tools that you can use to build your medical spa. It wasn't anything more than that. Then it ultimately became a bit more business focused. So we started doing the business boot camps, which was back in like 2000, I want to say 13 or 14 when we started those. And those were, okay, how do you build a med spa? How do you run a med spa? Because one thing that we've seen is a lot of folks in this industry, they have very little business acumen, business training. I didn't either at the time. I mean, I still feel like I'm kind of making it up as I go along. So we moved into sort of the business training where we just brought folks in to say, this is how you run a business. So events became a big part. Obviously, the medical spa show, which really took over our world for a couple of years just because it became much bigger, much quicker than we ever thought. But then I think where it's gone now is really it's transitioning more into we want to be where we really need to be more of a community where we have a place where people from around the country and hopefully the world can come together and be part of a group with like-minded people who can represent their interests. And I think now more than ever, it's important to have a common voice because right now with all the changes that are happening, we need to have a seat at the table. We need to have a voice. We need to be able to make changes. So that's really where we're going right now, more of that community aspect, more like a traditional trade group, really continue to provide the resources. It's been, it's kind of been up and down. One of the things that we do is live events. Live events are very dependent upon the economy and how many people want to go to live events. As you both know, being in the industry, like there's so many events right now. It's like there's a dime a dozen. And so it's much harder to fill events. Back in the day, this is probably before you were both born when we were doing boot camps. Like
We've been getting Botox for a long time. Our age is a mystery.
I'll bet. We were doing 8 to 10 boot camps a year. And we were filling 50, 60 people at a time, right? And that's just not even possible now. It's like we're getting 30, 40, 50 people maybe. And it's tough. So it's a different time.
Yeah, it's a big shift. I think something that I really appreciate about AmSpa and that I think a lot of med spas look at you guys as is kind of an advocate for the industry. The shows are great. The conferences are great. I personally love the boot camps. I think they have so much valuable information, but you guys play a big role in advocating and bringing even like from the distributors and brands, like they come to you guys for opinions and like, how do we roll out these changes? Or if the industry is upset at something, they kind of look to you guys as their speakers.
Yeah. that is kind of surprising. If they knew
whether
anything,
you want it or not.
If they knew me, they would not be coming to me like that. I've noticed that too. And for a while, it wasn't that I resisted it, but I felt almost like, I didn't want that responsibility because I'm a kind of a jackass sometimes. Like I'm not. And I mean that not that I'm irresponsible or anything, but I didn't feel, imposter syndrome is real. I never felt like I really knew what I was doing from back in the day. But I think you're right. And over time, we've kind of embraced that and said, okay, then part of the reason is that because the med spa industry is such a diverse, disparate industry where you've got, plastic surgery, dermatology, all manner of physicians from, OB-GYN to emergency room to whatever, plus RNs, PAs, entrepreneurs, not to mention industry, like you said, they're all out there and they all are kind of in the same jumbled mass. And there's no other real group that tried to represent only med spas. And we did from the beginning. And that was a conscious decision we made just because we thought that's where this industry was going. And so we really embraced it. And I actually have come to really enjoy it. Like when this kerfuffle, which is my new favorite word, by the way, down in Texas came up with this legislation, going down there and trying to talk to legislatures, calling different industry folks and saying, hey, we've got to get together on this. We got to do something. That was the most fun I've had in a long time. And it's like, I've been doing this since 2012. And it's 2025. I mean, that's a long time. So it's like you do have to kind of reinvent yourself and figure out what and I like that. And I think that's more what the next iteration of what AmSpa is going to be. It's truly going to be that advocate for everybody. And we really want to bring everybody together. And that's what I'm working on right now, almost full time.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Can you tell us a little bit for our listeners who don't know exactly what's going on in Texas? Can you kind of break down the bill, the legislation, what we're looking at there?
First of all, what's going on in Texas is a question that nobody can answer because it's Texas. And I'm just being
the Wild West.
In just a general.
Wild West.
But first of all, so 2 years ago or maybe 18 months ago or so, a woman died in Texas at a med spa, which was a horrible, horrible tragedy and should never have happened. And it kind of shook the industry. And after she got an IV, there was no medical help around. It was a real problem. This whole legislation was born out of that, which in Texas has always been kind of a pain in our ass for a variety of reasons, because it's interesting because they have very defined rules and laws, but they also don't follow them. And they have a lot of this huge industry of people who just do whatever they want. And so it's probably the biggest state for medical spas in the country. And a lot of them just do whatever they want, and they don't have proper supervision. They don't have anything. So a bill was filed that originally was going to really restrict how any medical spa could operate in Texas. They were going to force a specific type of specialized physician to be on site all the time, remove PAs and NPs from being able to do anything. It had made no sense, and it didn't actually solve the problem about IVs. That's how it started it. And when that came down, that was frightening, because had that passed, that would have changed things dramatically for
almost
everybody.
Every med spa,
and for you guys as well. I mean, it would have been like for industry, you'd no longer be able to market the way that we could. It would cut the industry in half probably. So that's how it started. We went down there and helped out, got it changed so that now it's a much more refined bill, only focused on trying to control IV practices, which is fine. But still, since then, there's just been all this other kind of weird stuff, weird bills that have been filed that we didn't even know were happening. It's things passing kind of in the middle of the night that no one even knew existed. Whatever's going on down there is kind of symptomatic of what we're seeing nationwide, which is there is a bubbling to the surface of a strong anti-med spa sentiment that is being driven by various groups, and they really don't want med spas to exist as they currently exist, meaning doctors, PAs, NPs, RNs, running med spas, being the ones who are doing the treatments. There's groups out there that are against that for a variety of reasons. And that's how the whole Texas thing came about. Fortunately, we're fine, but there's been a few weird things that have popped up since then, like the barber question.
Yeah, so they shot it down because they thought that it would affect barbers.
So that was one of these things that kind of came up on the side. So this was a totally separate bill that nobody even knew about, that came up in the Senate in Texas, that was actually something that was relatively positive in that one of the issues in Texas is that there are a lot of estheticians, cosmetologists who do injectables, which we get hammered for this all the time. We tend to not agree with as a general concept. We believe medical professionals, at least you have to be an RN, at least, and you should have supervision. In Texas, that doesn't always happen. Someone introduced a bill, which was kind of under the cover of darkness, that would have allowed them to do it, but they would have had to have a certain amount of training and a certificate, which wasn't great. But in our mind, okay, if they're going to do it, which they're going to do anyway, at least let them have some training. That was vetoed, which made no sense to anybody. And the reason it was vetoed was because of barbers and the thought that barbers do straight shaves with razors, and that might cause them to be nervous about doing shaves. Nothing to do with anything.
Very interesting.
An odd correlation there.
Yeah.
It had no correlation. And this was the governor, who I guarantee you of Texas has probably never even heard of a med spa before, right? Bottom line is all of this is just, you've got people making these decisions
That don't know.
who have no idea what they're doing. And that's why, to your point about, coming together as an industry and representing everybody, which is why I keep saying that. It's like, if we don't set the rules ourselves, then these are the folks who are going to be doing it. God only knows what they'll come up with, because they do not know what they're talking about. Like, it's bizarre.
They're not getting Botox.
And if they do, they'll get it from God knows where, and they'll think it's totally fine.
Esthetician at that.
Yeah.
They're getting it from a barber who's also doing their straight
exactly.
shave.
And you know what? What's interesting is that when I was down there testifying in front of the committee in Texas, it's clear that they think, when you say med spa, their vision of a med spa, this is like the government in Texas, the house. They envision a kind of a back room in an alley where you have to go, through some garbage cans, knock on a door with a secret code, and like pay cash, and it's some dirty, nasty, it's like a drug deal. That's how they think of what a med spa
like
is.
black market style.
That's what they think. Or you go into like a nail salon and do it. And so they have no idea of what it actually is. And that's something that has to change. We've got to do a much better job of educating, because that's not accurate, right? You guys know more better than anybody.
Yeah, very different. I would say it's even like some of the providers at med spas have better medical experience than like a primary care provider.
Better than dermatologists?
Yeah, I mean, you go to a dermatologist's office and sometimes you're like, oof, this is going to be rough.
No.
Yeah. This isn't going to be good.
They're like, what can I prescribe you? Quick 30-second look over things and on to the next.
And they most dermatologists don't do aesthetic work. They're doing skin cancers and stuff like that. And one time we talked to a few PAs and nurse practitioners who worked in dermatology offices, and most derms don't even allow their PAs and NPs to do injections. They basically just assist. The providers who are the most skilled, the most experienced, the most capable of dealing with complications that happen to no matter what skill level you have, are the physicians who are, the non-derms, non-plastics, and the NPs, PAs, and RNs. Those are the ones that are the best at it, like you said, for sure.
They are, and they are the ones that like excel, that are the top injectors, that people travel to see, that are key opinion leaders in the industry. I
think my suspicion is that is part of what's driving some of this sea change, is that there's some groups that don't like
I was going to ask, what do you think the reasoning behind the anti-med spa language is, or what's the purpose to shift more people to going to a plastic surgeon office, to shift them more towards traditional derms?
It's a couple things. No question, we can't ignore the fact that it is the really, really bad press that we get when people die in med spas. Or in New Mexico, there was like 3 or 5 people who got HIV from microneedling, which is terrible. There was a whole outbreak of something from Medspa chain, a group that had bought counterfeit product from China. And so these things happen. And so that's one, but that's very, very rare. The other thing is that it's that combined with a turf war, I think. There is a group of physicians. I think it's some cosmetic dermatologists, not all. We have some that are part of our association, and potentially some plastics. They see some of these celebrity, whether it's an RN, a PA, or an NP, who people are flying in from overseas to get their lips done or whatever from an RN, and that really bothers them, because in their mind, it's taking away their business. They're used to being kind of, the apex predator. And I don't know that for certain, but it almost can't be anything else, because it's not number of accidents or side effects or bad outcomes, because there's no data to support that more people get injured. If anything, they get more injured at derms than they do at other places. And the accidents that do occur at med spas almost always occur at these kind of rogue, under these kind of illegal ones that are operating where there's no supervision. And all of us in the industry want them out anyway. I think it's got a lot to do with economics. I think it's got a lot to do with bad PR as well.
This ad is brought to you by Boulevard, the beauty industry's most loved client experience platform. Sign up and see how easy switching softwares can be. Onboarding is simple, supportive, and actually kind of fun. Today's listeners can save 10% and get free guided setup. Simply head over to joinblvd.com/podcast to book a demo and get started.
When we talk about kind of these anti-med spa sentiments and why they're happening, can you tell us a little bit, and from your perspective, about what's at stake for the industry if bills like this are moving forward or keep getting swept under the rug?
I think we saw that recently with what happened in Texas. I think a couple things to that. So one, like the med spa industry, medical aesthetics, we're pretty insulated. Like we're kind of a closed loop in that we all are in the same industry, but we all know about the products and the procedures. We all read the same things. We're doing the same marketing, use the same companies, go to the same events. And then the patients who use these treatments are all aware of them as well. But that's kind of a bubble. And then outside of that are the patients who don't know anything about the treatments and the providers maybe don't know. And they often don't know about this kind of anti-Medspa sediment. So a lot of times when you say that, there's going to be people who listen to this who don't even know what we're talking about, who are in the Medspa industry even, who probably don't know what we're talking about. Because unless you've heard of it, it's really tough to to get a handle on it. But the fact is, if what happened in Texas were to pass and become the law in a state like Texas, it would have been catastrophic for that state. Meaning, probably, we did an informal poll of some of our members, 80 to 90% of the med spas in Texas that were our members would have had to either shut down entirely, shut down at least one location, or potentially go out of business completely. Think of what that would do to companies like Boulevard, companies like Allergan, companies like, the energy device companies. I think the other thing that is, it's a self-perpetuating system because now we get more bad press from it. So the Texas legislature she was a very nice legislator who brought the bill and she listened and she was able to amend it. But her story was telling about this woman who died and she had her husband there and her kids, and it was very hard to watch and it was very sad, and that became newsworthy for obvious reasons. That then gets amplified. And now that's a story, and you get then a story like we had on John Oliver the other day on HBO, where they start talking about med spas. That gets picked up. There was a big article in Bloomberg about med spas that was negative. There's another one coming out, I think, next month in one of the big magazines that we just got interviewed for. And so it's kind of like, if this continues to happen, were that to happen in a state like California, and we weren't able to stop it, or New York, or Florida, I don't know. I think it really would be tough to stop the momentum from impacting the industry in ways I don't know that we can even imagine. Like we're talking structurally where it would change the way that it looks and operates, where I don't know that we would recognize it in a couple of years. And that's why we can't allow it to happen. Not only because it would, financially and for all of us, it would be tough, but it's also just not fair because the reasons those things are happening are not accurate. And so that's why I think the biggest reason that I get kind of fired up about it is because right now, if you look at from the outside world looking in, John Oliver is a comedian. So med spas are kind of a punchline right now for a lot of people. And that's not where we want to be. We don't want to be the butt of jokes. We want to be, because that's not how we are. And we know that's not accurate. So we want to be professional, clinical, all the things that we know we are. That's the image that we wanted to get. And this is we need to do PR, we need to build our image, we need to change that narrative, and we need to be ready with a lot of resources to fight these things when they do come up, because they're coming up, they're popping up. It's almost like whack-a-mole now. It's going to be real tough if we don't get our act together. Don't mean to scare you guys.
Yeah, just preparing for war.
But it's also, war. I think it's time. We can't have people getting HIV from microneedling that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. We can't have people going over and buying full containers of product from Alibaba and literally infecting people with that, because not only does it hurt people, but it completely changes the competitive landscape where it's impossible for the compliant med spas to compete with that. They're selling $2 units of Botox, right? We got to get those folks out, and we've got to get some consistency, a level playing field, and make sure that folks understand that we are, in fact, what we claim to be, which is a safe, responsible, professional medical industry.
I think it is a good sign in terms of the positive aspect is that the industry has grown to a point where it is getting this national attention, and
it's a big enough way to look at it, Sky. I like that.
It is kind of, at some point we were going to grow to a point where there was that need for some legislation or some sort of regulation to be implemented. I think it's just now we have to make sure it's handled in the right way.
Yeah, it's true. I think that's a good point. At some point, you kind of have to pay the bills, right? We were talking about it the other day and I'm likened it to like building a big, they build these big McMansions in these neighborhoods. It's like at some point you build, the homeowners association is going to come in and they're going to start regulating how you do it. Eventually you get big enough and people are going to start to notice. And I think that's kind of what has happened. The question now is, how do we move forward? Do we do it in a way where we can continue, or do we allow outside forces to do it for us? That, which is my biggest fear in the Texas thing. I spent as much time fighting our own med spa owners and providers than I did fighting the people that we needed to be fighting, because they are just so amped up about whatever. And we got to stop doing that, because that's what's going to be the problem. Like, we can't have RN saying, no, I want to be able to own my own med spa and do anything that I want to do without a doctor being present, because that's just not how it works. And unfortunately, that's just not how the law works, but that's what was happening. And so we're fighting them and they're attacking us. At the same time, we're trying to say, well, you guys are not our enemy right now. We need to be on the same side.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that needs to be done.
Come together.
Yep.
When we talk about compliance, you've often said that compliance is key.
Cool.
Compliance is cool.
It is key.
I have a shirt that says it.
You know what? I can't believe I forgot
We need some merch.
my button.
Yeah.
I do have this sweet pin that I wear all the time, and I forgot it. I think I have one in my bag downstairs.
We'll Photoshop it in.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Sweet.
What are some of the most common compliance mistakes that you see, and how do you feel like med spas can proactively protect themselves?
Yeah, compliance is cool. Hashtag compliance is cool. The biggest thing for med spa is there's so many. Like, you can go down the list and talk for hours. For whatever reason, medical spas have kind of grown up in this, everyone says, oh, it's kind of a gray area, right? Well, I mean, the truth is it's not. The perception of them has been. So we've kind of developed this industry under the radar a little bit. And med spas have never been traditionally held to kind of medical regulatory standards. And I think the main thing for people they have to understand is that a medical spa is the same thing as a doctor's office. Meaning, if you go into your regular doctor's office down the street or an urgent care center or whatever it is, the same laws apply as they apply to the medical spa. So things like, you don't ever go to the doctor and never see a doctor, a PA, or an NP, right? You're always going to see them at some point. They're going to do some sort of a checkup. And the reason is because the license holders that can do prescriptions, they can set treatment plans, and they're the ones who have the ability to supervise. And so where we've gotten right now, and where I think people can be most diligent, is understand that you've got to behave as a medical practice. And a medical practice means you have supervision and you've got proper delegation and you see your patients in the right way. You kind of treat it and most of our providers come from hospital settings, and so they know it. They've just got to do it. And for whatever reason, we've developed this industry in a way where we haven't done that. It's kind of become a pseudo medical. It's a med spa, but the spa is the bad word. The medical is the good word. The spa is the way that the experience is, but you're getting medical treatments. You're not getting just spa treatments. And we don't want that, because we want there to be a level of differentiation, a barrier to entry, because medical spas are different, right? You get much different treatments. We want it to be different. We don't want people to go to a nail salon and get treatments, because that's what we do, right? The main thing is treat it like a medical practice. But I mean, there's a lot to learn, and you really have to know. You have to know what you're doing. Everybody, like if you're a physician listening to this, and this is one thing that we're not getting as much, but we used to get all the time, but it still happens. Physicians will think they can just kind of rent out their license and be a medical director to 50 med spas. If you're a physician and you're going to be supervising treatments, you have to know every single one of those treatments. You have to know how to do them. You have to know how to handle complications. And everyone who does those treatments also has to know treatments. So, which seems intuitive, but you'd think, but it's not always intuitive.
I like that. I think it's really important for the industry to remember that medical piece of like the forefront of who we are is we're providing effective medical treatments. That's why we pay a lot for them. That's why they work so well. So while we want it to be a luxurious experience, we want clients to enjoy it and want to come back. Really what they're coming for is the medical treatment. So operating with that first in mind.
It's not mutually exclusive, right? You can do the experience and still get the medical treatments. And that's why people
100%.
like it. I went to the dermatologist the other day and I was sitting in like this plastic seat, right? You know, there was like an old People magazine or Us Weekly. And
From like 12 years ago.
And they had the big like plexiglass and they opened the door and you went like, and you sit on the paper thing and it was terrible. Like that's why people go to med spas is because you want to have somebody come out and greet you. They know you. It's personal. And there's no reason we can't do that, but still hold on to the medical aspect, which is what your point was, which is absolutely right. We have to have both. And if we can do that, if we can get our industry to really embrace that and to get the side of our industry that doesn't want to do that, either to embrace it or get out, one of the two. They've either got to embrace it or we've got to get them out. There's nothing that we can't do. And the good thing is I've seen like when this industry comes together, like when the med spas come together under a common cause, whether it's, you know, fighting allergen or fighting something, it's like they will get what they want because it's very, very powerful. The amount of influence that we can bring to the table is huge, but it's only going to work if it's done under the guise of medical treatment, patient safety, not, you know, making a buck and being sexy and having a good time on Instagram, which is great. We can still do that. We should still do that. It's got to be also treatments, medical treatments. There has to be a barrier of entry. We've got to make sure that we want to be the ones to do it. You've got to have a certain amount of training, schooling. Otherwise, everybody can do it. And if everybody can do it, it's not good for us.
Well, as we wrap up, is there anything in terms of the industry trends, anything you see that's exciting or that we should be aware of?
I mean, always. It is
a fun industry.
It's ever
the best.
evolving. I mean, it really is. The biggest thing we saw, and I'm sure you've seen this at Medical Spa Show as well, was really the merging of, you know, wellness and aesthetics. So with peptides and GLP-1s, and so you've got whole body wellness, and we're starting to kind of see that more and more. But what I'm finding very interesting is that you've got two sides of it. You've got the anti-aging and the kind of wellness side that's out there. Like if you go to A4M, I don't know if you've been to A4M, which is a big anti-aging conference. It's a very different kind of conference. It's very kind of new age almost and different. And then the aesthetic side, which is lashy, professional, I think. And so I don't think they're going to merge together. When you see med spas start to do the more wellness thing, it ends up being a very different product than when you see the anti-aging places start doing aesthetics. Because when they start doing aesthetics, I don't think it really works. That's the biggest trend that I see happening. And who knows what's going to happen with the GLP-1s. I mean, that is a game changer because now they're going to have a pill that you can take, right? Coming out soon. That is going to be huge. And that's going to unleash a whole number of because now you've got folks who just lost weight. There's a ton. So I can't wait to see what goes on with that. And I also think new treatments are always going to be the thing that's always exciting about this industry is there's always new treatments that come up. As that continues to happen, it changes the landscape. And so hopefully we'll get less painful treatments.
We can only hope.
I'm just down for more effective. I'm waiting for the whole body machine.
Yeah.
I just want to get in a machine and have it do it all.
I think that's coming. It won't be that long. I mean, yeah. But so that's the main thing though, the wellness and the weight loss. That's huge.
Yeah, but that's what makes this industry so exciting, right? It's forever changing, forever growing, always something new to look forward to.
I also think there's no end in sight to how big it can get, provided we don't shoot ourselves in the foot, right? Mm-hmm. Because when you think about the number of people who have had treatments, right, aesthetic treatments, whether it's Botox, fillers, whatever, it's minuscule compared to the population. And I mean, you girls are getting this when you're 21 years old or 15, whatever, before you're born, you're going to start getting,
two.
You're going to come out and
it's preventative.
It's like, it's crazy. So when you think of the Gen Zers now who, once they actually need it, like you're going to have this whole other population coming in. And it's going to be crazy. For those of you who are out there listening and you want to become an RN or an NP or a PA or a physician even, it's like we need providers. We really need providers to come in and help. And it's a great industry. You can build your own brand, your own business. It's so fun. That's another thing I really love about this is you get to one of the only places in healthcare now where you can have your own business. Like there's no big hospitals that are taking over. You can have your own brand. You can have your own little storefront. And that's cool. You don't get to do that very often in healthcare anymore. What do you guys want to be when you grow up? Let's talk about that.
This.
I mean, everybody knows my secret dream job is to be a stand-up comedian, but I'll stick with med spas.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's going to work well for retirement and aging.
Okay.
So I'll take it.
Better than a comedian, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know. Interesting. All right.
All right, Alex. Well, if our listeners want to learn more about AmSpa, learn more from you, where should they go?
AmericanMedspa.org is where you go. We're very easy to find on there. And then we do have an Instagram handle that we'll get to you.
We'll put it in the show notes.
AmSpa _ something or other, which I should know off the top of my head, but I don't. Yeah, and we also have a website for medical spa show as well as for the Women's and Aesthetics Leadership Conference, which is coming up this fall as well. So lots of stuff. But yeah, I'm easy to find.
Easy to find.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
So fun.
We work in the beauty industry, so clunky software is just not the vibe. Boulevard is sleek, made for beauty pros, and gets you compliments, not complaints from clients. Podcast listeners can get 10% off plus free guided setup. So head over to joinblvd.com /podcast to claim the special offer.